So 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'm Darren Alf. I'm in Brașov, Romania right now, and I am going to do a 1-hour Q&A session today. I'm wearing my sunglasses and helmet, basically just to be funny, because I got an email earlier today, last night actually, from a young Bicycle Touring Pro reader, and he was saying, you know, I want to go on a bike tour, but I don't really want to wear like spandex pants and this tight jersey and all this typical cycling apparel. And I wrote him back and said, you know, that's really one of the great things about bicycle touring is that you don't have to wear a lot of the traditional cycling stuff. And I know that for me, that's one of the reasons I really like bicycle touring, especially when I was younger, was that, you know, I'm not a big uniform sort of person. Anything that requires wearing a uniform, I kind of, no, I don't know if I want to do that. And so I consider this cycling uniform that you see a lot of traditional bicyclists wearing, you know, I see that as sort of a uniform. And so it's kind of nice. I like bicycle touring because I don't have anything that I have to wear. You can choose to wear cycling spandex or a tight racing jersey if you want to, or you can choose to wear a t-shirt and a baseball cap or whatever you want. You can wear pants or shorts, or I've seen guys ride naked across certain parts of the world. So you can do what you want to do, and you can cater your bike tours in any way that you want. So that is one of the things that I really like about bike touring. I thought it'd be kind of a fun way to start the webinar today, to remind you that there are tons of different types of bicycle tours, and where you go in the world, how long you choose to travel, the type of gear you choose to carry, who you choose to travel with. All of these things will dictate how you do your bike trip, and in the end, there are really no rules. There are some general guidelines to make your trip easier or harder depending on how you choose to do it, but there are no rules. Like, you literally can just get a bike and go if you want to. That's not always the easiest way to do it, but it is possible. So that's my little introduction today. Normally, when I do these webinars, I usually talk for about 20 or 30 minutes about a particular subject, and then I open it up for Q&A afterwards. But today, I kind of thought I would just do some Q&A and allow you guys to ask me any questions that you have about bike touring, world travel, whatever, and I would try to answer them as best I can. Before I do that, let me just introduce myself a little bit for those of you who don't know who I am. My name is Darren Alf, and I am the guy behind the website at BicycleTouringPro.com. For the last 15 years, I've been riding a bicycle all around the world on my own for the most part, and since 2007, I've been running the website at Bicycle Touring Pro, where I've been helping people conduct their own bicycle touring adventures, whether they be short overnight bike tours near their home or long, multi-month-long bicycle trips that go across an entire continent, country, the world, you name it. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess. Right now, I am in Brașov, Romania, and I just completed well, let's go back a little bit. I kind of do my trips in segments. You hear about a lot of people that like travel around the world on one continuous loop. That's generally not the way that I do my trips. I kind of do them in month-long chunks, and or multi-month-long chunks. And this particular chunk of travel that I'm doing, I've been away from home for about, what's June now? So 16 months at this point. And I'm still going. I got another 3.5 months or so, and then I'm going to fly back to the United States. So it's quite a long little trip. Right now, well, I should say at the beginning of this particular trip, I cycled through Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Then I flew to Ireland, went through Ireland and the UK, then to Romania, then back to the UK. Then I flew to China and Taiwan, back to the UK. Then I went to Germany, Poland, and just recently rode my bike from Poland into Ukraine and then down into Romania, which is where I am now. And for the last 2 months, I've just been taking a little break here in Romania, doing computer work, getting ready for the next leg of the trip. And in about 5 days, I will leave my current location and begin another 3-month-long bike tour that will take me through Serbia, Bosnia, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So whew, you get all that? That is kind of what I'm doing at the moment, in addition to running Bicycle Touring Pro and trying to help as many people as possible conduct their own bike tours. So that's my little intro, and I think with that I will open it up for Q&A. If you have a question that you want to ask me, there should be a little box on the right-hand side of the screen there where you can type in any questions that you might have about bicycle touring, traveling the world, how a lot of people lately have been asking, how do I afford to do this and that kind of thing. If you want to ask me that, I can try to answer. And yeah, that's it. So I also have a list of questions that people have sent me recently via email or via Facebook, people that said, I can't tune into the webinar tonight, but if you could answer this question, I'd really appreciate it. So I do have a list of additional questions as well. Oh, it's like the most I've ever talked. You go for months barely talking to someone and then do a webinar and whew, 5 minutes in, that's all I can take. Okay, so yeah, I'll just, if I miss your question, maybe repost it or something. I'll try to answer them all, but if I miss it, don't yell at me. William Bacon there says, do you use a bicycle cargo trailer? If so, would you prefer a one-wheeled trailer or a two-wheeled trailer? That's a good question, and there are two main methods to carrying your gear on a bike trip, generally. Well, there's three, really. The first and most obvious way that most people think about carrying gear when they're a beginner is with a backpack. But that's generally not something that you want to do when you're on a bike trip, because carrying a backpack, especially with a bunch of stuff in it, is going to be hot, sweaty, and it'll make you really sore, especially when you ride for days on end. So you generally don't want to wear a backpack. And even like these camel pack, hydration packs have become really popular in the last 10 years or so. And I would say you want to avoid these things as well, because any weight that you have on your body and anything that's pressing up against you really is going to make you hot, sweaty, and sore, especially over the long run. So I'd say avoid hydration packs, avoid backpacks in general, and instead carry your equipment with the use of panniers, which are backpack-sized bags that kind of attach to the front and rear racks of your bicycle, or as William says here, a trailer. And there are two common types of bicycle trailers, as William mentions, the one-wheeled trailer and the two-wheeled trailer. And to answer his question, the one-wheeled trailers are generally best for bicycle touring, and there are two main reasons for that. The extra wheel creates additional friction, and it makes it basically harder to pedal your bike. So the more wheels that you have touching the ground, the harder it is for you to pedal. So on a one-wheeled trailer, you would have 3 wheels touching the ground, the 2 wheels from your bicycle, and then the 3rd wheel from the trailer. A two-wheeled trailer is going to have 4 wheels touching the ground, so that's even more resistance now that you have to overcome when you're riding your bike. So a one-wheeled trailer is better. The downside to the one-wheeled trailer is that when you're parked, it can be a little difficult to park the bike. You have to lean it up against a fence or something like that, otherwise the trailer kind of flops over. That is probably the only downside to the one-wheeled trailer. The other downside to a two-wheeled trailer is that on a one-wheel trailer, the wheel is in the center. And so when you're riding down like a narrow shoulder, for example, you can really hug that shoulder with the trailer, and the wheel will follow your front 2 bicycles, or front 2 wheels of your bicycle. With a two-wheel trailer, the wheels stick out to the side, which means that when you're riding on a narrow shoulder, you have to push your whole body over about 6 inches or so that your rear trailer wheel will be in the road. So you're actually pushing yourself more into traffic when you ride with a two-wheel trailer. So as a safety matter, it is a little bit safer, I think, to have a one-wheel trailer. So I hope that answers the question. I could talk about trailers a lot, but I have never actually used a trailer on one of my long-distance bike tours. I have used them on shorter bike tours near my home, and trailers generally outperform panniers when you're doing an off-road tour or something in like dirt roads. Like a lot of people that go to Africa or South America or something, they will oftentimes ride with trailers. Those that are doing more traditional road touring on paved roads, like in Europe or North America or Australia, for example, those sorts of people tend to use panniers. So yeah. Keith says, are you married? And if so, does your wife ride? No, I'm not married. I am 31 now. I'm not married. All of my friends now are getting married and have kids, though, and have responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. I do have a house back home, and that is probably my largest responsibility. Yeah, I think, part of, this is a big question too to answer. I started bike touring when I was 17 years old, and at the time, I would get invited into a lot of people's homes. They would kind of see me, maybe feel bad for me, or realize that I was a young kid traveling on my own and that I needed a place to sleep and shower and stuff. So I'd get invited into these people's homes, and they would tell me over and over and over again, like, gosh, I wish I could do what you do, or what you're doing now. And then they say, but, and then they would say, but I have a job, but I have a house, I can't leave my house, but I have a wife, or but I have a kid, but I have a dog, or whatever. And so I heard that like thousands of times, like when I was 17, 18, 19, and cycling all across North America at that time. And so I think part of that really got into my head. And so now I do make a lot of decisions based on like, will this give me the freedom to do what I want in the future? I got rid of my car recently because I felt like that was tying me down a little bit. I do have a motorcycle at the moment, but I just put it in storage when I'm traveling. It doesn't cost me very much, so that's not too bad. But yeah, I guess I have made some decisions in life that allow me the freedom to travel. And yeah, you make some sacrifices as well. I don't know if that answers your question or not. That was kind of a roundabout way of saying it all. What are the best countries to start bicycle touring? Tim Wenzel asks. That's a good question. But the honest answer is probably the best place to start touring is where you are right now. And doing a trip close to home is probably the best way to start. No matter where you are in the world, there's probably a good place right near where you live, not too far away, maybe even right at your front door, that you could go bicycle touring from or to. So that is probably my best recommendation. If you want to get into bicycle touring, don't think that you have to come to Europe or something like that to do a bike tour. It's not necessary. Start out close to home, and then once you learn that you like it, or once you learn some of the basics of how to travel on a bike, then you can start thinking about, okay, where do I want to go? And that's usually what I tell people is like, don't pick a destination for your bike trip based on like where somebody like myself says is best. Like I will tell you some of my favorite places here in just a moment, but I do think like if you really want to have an awesome bike tour, you got to pick a place in the world that you're passionate and interested about. Because if you go to a place that I'm interested in, or that other people are interested in, you might get there and realize, hey, this isn't what I thought it would be. This isn't quite as fun or as interesting. as everybody else made it out to be, because they were giving their opinion and your opinion is different. So yeah, I would say pick a destination for your bike trip that you are most interested in. As far as good places that are bicycle friendly, I honestly think like Europe is really like the best place in the world for cycle touring. There's so much here as far as cycling infrastructure that it blows a lot of other parts of the world out of the water. And Europe is really a very, very small place. And so it's easy to get around from one country to the next. It is inexpensive generally to get around from one place to the next. I guess I'm trying to think of like my favorite places in Europe. I would honestly say Switzerland is probably one of my favorite places in the world for bike touring. In large part because they have the cycling infrastructure. They have not only like road touring trails, but also like off-road mountain bike sort of trails as well. There are mountains, there are flatlands, so you can really cater your trip towards what you want in that country with like a little bit of planning and preparation. If you go to bicycletouringpro.com and type in Switzerland, I've been there like 3 times or something like that. I've probably spent about 3 months in Switzerland total in my travels. So it's a place I know quite a bit about. I lived in Lucerne, Switzerland for a little while. And yeah, I really love Switzerland. Other good places in Europe, I really like Belgium. It is another really interesting country that I don't think a lot of people consider too much, and I don't know why, because it's really beautiful. There's tons of cycling paths. Again, like Switzerland, there are like a lot of flatlands, but also like there are hilly sections. And yeah, Belgium's a really good place. And finally, I got to Eastern Europe. I would say Romania, where I am right now, is really like one of my favorite places in the entire world for traveling in general. Bike touring here is amazing. There is not much cycling infrastructure here, but there's not a lot of traffic on the roads. The roads are in really good shape. The scenery, the architecture and stuff is really interesting. There are forests, mountains, all kinds of cool stuff in Romania. If you like outdoorsy adventure sports like I do, Romania is the place to come, and it's cheap. It's super cheap. I'm in Romania right now. This apartment, I don't know if you can see it, but here I am. I rented this place on AirBNB.com, and it cost me $400 a month, 400 US dollars. So some people will think that's expensive, but for me, that's super cheap. And yeah, it's a really, really cool place to travel and bike tour. Let me go back to the questions here. Yeah, so those are my tips, I guess. I could recommend so many places for bike touring. I could go on and on. Any tips for flying with a bike and luggage? Yes, several tips, in fact. One, a lot of people don't know how to pack up their bike, and you should learn. It's very easy. You can watch a YouTube video. There's dozens of YouTube videos about how to pack up your bike in a cardboard bike box, or a bike box in general. Just watch one of those videos. It's really, really simple. Once you have your bike in the box and you're ready to buy a ticket, I created another video on Bicycle Touring Pro's YouTube channel about flying with your bicycle. And my tip there is that you should always research the airline's baggage policy for flying with a bicycle, because every airline is different. A lot of airlines now are charging $150, $200, $350 per direction for a bicycle. A lot of money. And so consider the price of shipping the bike in with the actual cost of the ticket. Sometimes the cost of the ticket is really low, but then they charge you massive amounts for your bicycle. I almost booked a ticket myself when I was flying to Taiwan recently. I won't say what airline it was, but it was a pretty cheap ticket, like $700, I think, round trip to Taiwan. But when I looked at the bicycle policy, it was going to cost me like $1,000 to ship the bike. So I was like, oh man, that does not work out. The other thing is when you're flying with your bicycle, on the day that you buy your ticket, print out the bicycle baggage policy, because the policies are always changing. And if, for example, like when you go to buy your ticket, it might say that like bicycles are free. You're like, great, okay, the ticket's cheap and bikes fly for free, awesome. But then when you get to the airline, they say, no, we changed our policy and now it's $150 to fly your bike. This happens all the time. And especially if you book your ticket like way, way in advance. And so what you want to do is you want to print out the bicycle baggage policy on the day that you bought your ticket so that you can match the dates, and bring that with you to the airport just in case they try to charge you a different amount for your bicycle. You can say, hey, look, I bought the ticket on this date, blah, blah, blah. I was expecting to pay nothing, or I was expecting to pay $80 or whatever. And can I please get that rate, not the new ridiculous rate? So that's my big tip. Other than that, like obvious sorts of things like try to wrap your bike up as best you can, protect it, etc. Make sure you're not overweight, because a lot of airlines now are getting really, really picky about this. I have found that they're much more picky about the weight than they are about the size of the box. So keep that in mind. The box size is important as well, and some airlines will kind of actually measure the box, but most do not, I've found. Yeah, those are my tips for flying. I still find flying with a bicycle to be the most stressful, difficult part about bicycle touring, even though I've done it like 100 times. It gets easier, it does, but it's kind of annoying. And I guess it's annoying because it's always different. I mean, it just depends on the person that you get at the gate. Whoever's checking you in, if they're cool, they're relaxed, they're in a good mood, it's no problem. But you get someone who's got a stick up their bum, it could be a bad day. So, Isa Linkopin, oh man, I butchered your name. Tips for muscle preparation before the trip. Yeah, actually, I do have some tips there. My number one tip is that the best way to prepare for a bicycle tour is to ride your bike, and to ride it long distances. And once you've started to do longer distances, maybe 40 miles or so, 40 miles, 60 kilometers, once you've gotten yourself up to where you can do that pretty easily, start to add some weight to your bicycle. Start riding with a set of panniers, start pulling a trailer with some stuff in it. Even if it's not the stuff that you are going to bring with you on your actual bike tour, like throw some towels in your bags or something like that, and get used to riding the bike carrying weight and doing so over a long distance. That's really like probably the best way to prepare for a bike tour. Like a lot of people want to go to the gym and stuff like that, but really, if you want to get your body in shape for a bike tour, ride your bike, cycle long distances as long as you can, and start adding weight as you go along. Once you do that and you ride often, like I think a lot of people say like, oh, I'll go on one long bike ride on the weekend or something. I don't think that's really enough to get you in prime riding condition before a big bike tour. Because on a bike tour, generally, you are riding, let's say, 6 out of 7 days a week, you know, over long distances. And so you need to get yourself prepped for those kinds of, that kind of riding, basically. So those are my best tips. I think stretching, drinking lots of water, getting good food into your system, all of that is really important as well, because you don't do those things, you could just fall apart. Doesn't matter what kind of shape you're in. If you're not, you know, drinking enough water, you could be in trouble. Terry, watching from California Bay Area. Cool. Ginny Newman, what happens if you get sick on the trip? That's a good question. And in my 15 years of bike touring all around the world, I think I've gotten sick. I can really only remember getting sick twice. And it was because I got food poisoning on both instances. I was once in Peru and once I was in Swaziland in South Africa. And during those two instances, I was lucky enough because I was simply able to find a hotel, a hostel, a B&B sort of thing, and rent a room for a week and just stay put. That's really all I did. And you know, sat on the toilet for a long time and laid in bed and drank lots of water, and then finally I was okay and I was able to continue going. So that's generally what happens if you get sick. The problem, I think, for a lot of people is like I am traveling with a fairly open schedule where I don't have to be at a particular place every single day, and that's largely because I've made bike touring a lifestyle. The problem occurs when you only have like a week or two off of work and you're trying to pack a bike, you know, pack your bike trip into this very short span of time. And if you get sick on one of those days, it can really, really ruin your bike trip. I guess my first tip would be don't get sick, you know, take good care of yourself. But the other part of that is, like, I have found that when I am bike touring, I am in probably like better shape. I'm healthier. I eat better. You know, my body is kind of spitting everything out that it doesn't want or need. And so I think like bike touring is possibly a good way to keep yourself from getting sick. So, you know, I haven't heard of a lot of people even on their bike trips who have gotten like really sick of, I don't know, a flu or something like that. Like, I think in a weird way, like your body kind of kicks in and fights that off because you're doing what you're doing. So that is kind of a cool thing, I think. I don't think that's 100% in any sort of way, but I've found that myself, is that like I feel better, I feel stronger, I eat healthier, etc. when I'm on my bike tours. So yeah. We're planning a trip this summer where we'll hit several tourist stops on the coast of France. What do we do with our bikes during the days while we're on foot? That's a very good question, and it's probably one of the most common questions that I get asked from people planning a bike trip. And it's an important question because one of the things that I've been telling people for years is that, like, a lot of people plan these bike trips and they obsess over the biking part. They think like they're gonna bike for a whole 2 weeks straight and do nothing but biking. But the reality is, like, even if you love to bike, you're gonna get sick of it after a while. And there are gonna be instances when you wanna get off your bike and explore a local tourist attraction, maybe go to a movie, something like that. And then this issue comes up, is like, what do you do with your bicycle? Especially when all of your humanly possessions are strapped to the bike. You don't want to just lock it up on the street and leave it there. What you do is you find some place to put your bike. And generally, the first place I usually try is, if I'm staying in a hotel or an apartment, a hostel, etc., I just say, is there a place I can bring my bike inside and you can watch it? That is the most obvious and easiest way to secure your bicycle. Then you can leave your bike and they put it in a closet or something somewhere, and you're free to go on foot. That's the easiest way. If you're just passing through an area and you aren't staying in a hostel, for example, that becomes a little bit more difficult. What I generally do is I go to a hotel or a bike shop, or generally any local business that I think looks like they might help me, and tell them, you know, explain them this situation. Like, I would just say, like, hey, I'm riding my bike down the coast of France, and I just wanted to go and check out this beach for 2 hours. Could I leave my bicycle here and I'll come back, you know, and pick it up a little bit later? Most people are totally fine with that, and if they aren't, or they don't have room for it, most people will point you in the direction of somebody that they know that might help, or blah, blah, blah. And if they don't help you, just move on to the next one and try asking them if they'll help. So that's really, like, it seems really simple, but that's what you have to do. It takes a little bit of work, and you got to be careful who you ask. Like, that's why I feel better leaving my bike with businesses, established businesses, because they have a certain reputation that they're trying to maintain. And if they lose your bike or whatever, that's bad for their reputation. If you, I've heard so many horror stories of people on bike tours who some person on the street comes up to them and says, you know, I'll watch your bike for you while you go into the store, or, you know, or whatever. And the bike tourist says, oh boy, that's great, you know, thank you so much. And then when they come out of the store, their bike is gone. I have found that generally the person who is offering their assistance to you is oftentimes the person you have to fear most about stealing your bicycle. So that's not true in every instance, and that's where street smarts and stuff has to come in. You have to kind of be able to judge the situation, the place you're in, the person you're talking to, etc., to be able to tell, is it safe to leave my bike with this person in this place, etc. Okay, I've talked too much about that. Anyways, how do you manage dog attacks? It's a common problem here. Truffy Ernst. Where is here, I wonder? Because I've pedaled all the way around the world for 15 years, and I've never really had a dog attack me. I've had dogs chase me and bark at me, but I've never really had a dog attack me. And I hear this a lot, like that people, I think it maybe comes from a fear of dogs in general, but yeah, I don't think it's actually like as big of a problem as you think it is. I think the dogs aren't really attacking you. They're just barking at you, and they're just chasing you. If you watch one of my YouTube videos just recently that I posted from my bike tour here in Romania, I did have a dog bite onto one of my rear panniers on the back side of my bicycle, and the dog punctured a little hole in my pannier. That's about as close as I've ever come to being attacked by a dog on a bike tour. I think generally you just have to get over your fear of dogs. I have a scar like right here on my eye. I was bitten when I was like 2 years old by a dog, like in the face. And I have scars somewhere else on my face as well, but from this dog attack or a dog bite. So if anyone should be afraid of dogs, it should be me, but I'm really not. And I don't think there is a fear or that you should have a fear of dogs when you're bike touring. Most dogs just kind of see you and get excited and chase after you for a tiny little bit, and then they're gone. So don't worry about bringing pepper spray or any other kind of weapon to fight dogs off. Just move through their little territory, and once you're out of their territory, you'll be fine. Okay, Will McCary. I'm sorry, I'm so butchering you guys' names. Will McCary, how do you deal with planning trips in a country that doesn't speak your native language? Do you learn key phrases before you go? Yes and no. I mean, I have found that learning even like 5 words of the local language can help a ton. Like hello, thank you, goodbye. What else? Like I don't understand, and that's pretty much it. Like 4. And then if you can learn the numbers, like those 4 words and the numbers 1 through 10, that is like super, super valuable to learn those few phrases. So 15 words or phrases will get you through like any country in the world. That doesn't allow you to communicate or anything, but it allows you to survive. As far as planning trips through countries that don't speak your language, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by how do you deal with planning a trip to a country. I guess you deal with it by planning the trip the way you would plan any trip. And the interactions with the locals is just something you have to learn once you get there. I still get uncomfortable when I go to a country that I don't know, especially any of the local terminology or words. I just feel kind of stupid, really. And so I guess I try. I make a fool out of myself a lot. I think you get better at making a fool out of yourself, which makes your time on the road a little bit more comfortable. You know, a lot of these people, depends where you are in the world too, but they're kind of used to interacting with people that don't speak the local language, or it's so rare that they don't think about it at all. So I don't know. I'd say try to learn a little bit if you can. I have learned quite a bit of like German, Polish, Spanish, like I can actually communicate in those languages. Simply, I learned all that from my bike tours around the world. And I think it's kind of fun to learn new languages too, especially like on a bike tour. So if you're looking for a good excuse to learn a new language, I think going on a bike tour in that particular country where they speak the language you want to learn is a good way to go. So yeah. Yeah, dog attacks. Henrik says, "Hi Darren, it's the first time I've seen you live like this. Thanks for taking the time. When camping, how do you keep your bike overnight? Outside your tent, locked up, locked to something, or just locked?" That's a good question, actually. And you'd be surprised to learn that 99% of the time, my bicycle is simply outside my tent, usually about like a foot or two away from my tent, so that it's close and I could hear anybody that's coming nearby. That's the first thing. 99% of the time, I do not lock my bicycle up, but that's largely because the way that I travel, I'm usually, if I'm camping, I'm not in a campground. If I was in a campground, I would lock the bike to like a nearby fence, you know, a rail, and I'd even lock it to my tent if there was nothing else around. Go to bicycletouringpro.com and type in how to lock up your bike if there's nothing to lock it to. Yeah, search for how to lock up your bike if there's nothing to lock it to. And I show you a technique for locking your bicycle to your tent and leaning the bike up against your tent in a particular way so that you can see your bike from inside, and it makes it so that if someone were to try to grab your bike and run off with it, they'd basically like rip your whole tent out of the ground as well. So it's kind of a little security precaution when there's nothing else to lock your bike to. Like I was saying before, most of the time I don't lock my bike at all because I'm camping in the forests or something, or in the desert, and there's just nobody around for miles. Or I'm camping in such a situation where I'm hiding in the bushes kind of, and no one would see me. So it really does depend on the situation that you're in, where you are in the world, how many people are nearby, etc. But yeah, my first tip is lock up your bike in every possible situation where you think you need to. Even sometimes you don't think you need to, you should probably lock up your bike. And yeah, I guess the other part of that too is like, I don't leave my bike ever. Like, I leave it when I go into a hotel or something and it's locked in a closet. Then I leave my bike. I feel safe and comfortable leaving my bike. But when I'm out on the street and like I go into a supermarket or something, like even if I'm just going in for like a second, I lock up the bike. You know, if I step, I don't step away from the bicycle. That's the thing. Like I bring it with me, or it's always within view. So I guess that's another thing. Like I've heard so many horror stories from people around the world that left their bike out on the street overnight, and they were surprised when they came back the following morning and the bike was gone. I don't understand that completely. So don't do that. Lock up your bike, like even if you think it's safe, just as an extra precaution. Oops, I skipped around here. Hold on one second. Yeah. Hi, it looks like you use a bike with 26-inch wheels, not too little for such long distances? Another good question. Yeah, so there are different bicycle wheel sizes, and the most common are 26 and 700C wheels. There are other sizes as well, 20-inch wheels, which you see on like folding bikes, BMX bikes. There are 29-inch wheels that are gaining popularity. They're 28-inch, I think, now. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of different sizes. No, that's your question about that wheel size being too little for long distances is kind of a not true. Yes, it is common that on road bicycles, especially like the larger 700C wheels are more popular. They roll a bit better. But to be honest, like when you're on a touring bicycle, you're not so concerned with maintaining a maximum speed, and you're generally going quite slow. And so the small difference in size between 26 and 700C is not enough for the typical cyclist to even feel in any sort of way. In 2009, I rode a folding bicycle, which is like a tiny little bicycle that folds out. You've probably seen them people with them on buses or whatever. But I rode a folding bicycle across Europe from Switzerland to Greece. And that was a 9-month bike tour, and I went like all over Europe on that bike. But I did that on, with these tiny, tiny little wheels. And so I guess now I have 26-inch wheels, which are 3 times the size practically. And you're saying that they're small, but in reality, no, they're not. And 26-inch wheels, there's an article on Bicycle Touring Pro about this as well. But 26-inch wheels are better for global bicycle touring. That's a bike tour where you're going through multiple countries and some of these more remote places like in South America, Africa, Asia, etc. Because 26-inch wheels are easier to find everywhere in the world. 26-inch is like the standard bicycle wheel size pretty much everywhere in the world. So if you get a flat tire, your tire blows out, your rim blows or something, you can find replacement parts as you go. Whereas 700C wheels, the larger bicycle wheels, are only really available in certain countries in the world. Like in Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, those places, you can probably pretty easily find 700C wheels. But in other places, like, I don't know, like the jungles of Peru or something, it's going to be very hard to find a 700C wheel if you happen to blow it out or something. So that's the reason I have 26-inch wheels and tires on my bike, is because I'm going to some of these places that are a little bit more out there. Where do you mostly get water from on the road? That's another good question. As I drink some water. And it depends, once again, on where you are in the world. Every place is kind of different. In most instances, I generally just drink from the tap. Bathrooms, sinks, stuff like that. But in many parts of the world where maybe the water is questionable, or where the water is surely questionable, I just buy bottled water. And there's bottled water everywhere in the world, let me tell you. Or there's bottled something everywhere in the world. 2 years ago, I rode my bike across portions of Africa, and there were a few days where I could not find bottled water, but there was plenty of Coca-Cola. And so for like 2 days straight, I was drinking Coca-Cola, which is not, I never drink soda at all, like in my real life. But the fact that there was like a liquid that I could drink, you know, it kept me alive, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I was like a little jittery because I had sugar rush from drinking liters of Coca-Cola. But that's generally it, is like drink out of the tap if it's safe to do so, and then bottled water. Like a lot of, I think people are going on more global, you know, big round the world sort of bike tours, or more like bike packing has become really popular, which is bicycle touring off-road essentially. And if you're doing that kind of a trip, you might want to bring a water filter or something. I don't carry a water filter just because I haven't found over the years a great enough need to carry such a device. Like when I went across Africa, there may have been like 3 instances where it was like, gosh, I wish I had a water filter right now. But for the other 90 days that I was there, I would have been carrying this big water filter for no reason. So that's why I don't carry one. But again, it just depends on where you're going, what your goals are for your trip, et cetera. If you're going into a remote part of the world where you're going to be drinking out of streams and stuff, water filter and stuff is probably a really good idea. How do you feel about safety in Eastern Europe? Terry asks. That's a good question. I love Eastern Europe. It's probably like my favorite place to bike tour in the world. I like it because it is safe. I don't, I've never really, I'm trying to think if anything bad has ever happened to me where I've ever felt unsafe in Eastern Europe. To be honest, no. Not from like a person, never from like people bothering me or anything. I mean, there's, you know, like traffic conditions and stuff can vary, of course, like that just depended on anywhere in the world. But as far as personal safety and like a threat of other people, I've never felt that in Eastern Europe. I've gone through Ukraine, I've gone through Turkey, I don't know what other places might be kind of dodgy or something, but you know, like I just recently went through Ukraine, and Ukraine is having some, you know, troubles right now. I went through Western Ukraine, which is far from the trouble, but I thought maybe, you know, maybe there would be some issues there, but really no. Like even the soldiers and stuff that I came across on the road were really nice for the most part. I mean, they were nice and friendly and kind of joked with me a little bit and stuff, but and like the people were really cool. Yeah, I honestly have like nothing bad to say about Eastern Europe. Like I really like this part of the world, and I like it too because it's got like all the cool stuff that like it still feels European, but it's cheap. And if a lot of people come to bike touring because it is an inexpensive means of traveling, I know I certainly appreciate like going on a bike tour and actually saving money because it's so inexpensive. So yeah, Eastern Europe is a great place to bike tour. Like I said, Romania, come here. It's really cool. I really like Slovakia. The Czech Republic is really good too. Oh man, yeah, there's a lot of really good places actually. So yeah. How do you get over the pain caused by a saddle? If I ride for more than 3 hours, it hurts so bad I can't sit down. If that's happening, you're either, one, riding incorrectly, which I think a lot of people do. When you ride a bike, you aren't meant to actually like sit down 100% of the time. You need to stand up and stretch a little bit as you ride. Like you should ride for a few minutes and then just stand on the pedals for a little bit and you know, allow the blood to come back into that part of your body. You should do that really like every couple minutes. If you watch me, like if you were to come on a bike trip with me, you would see me standing up like every, I don't know, minute or something like that. Like I am barely in the saddle a lot of the times. Like it looks like I'm sitting down, but I really push myself up, and I'm, you know, every little hill or something, I'm stretching my arms out, I'm stretching my back out, I'm, you know, allowing blood to flow back into my butt and crotch area or whatever. So that's really like probably my first big tip is like, don't sit down for 3 hours straight, because that's probably why you're having pain. The most common issue with people experiencing like saddle sores and stuff is that your saddle is positioned incorrectly. A lot of people have the saddle too far down, like positioned down this way or back this way, and even positioning it like too far one to the left or one to the right or something like that. All of those little things can, over time, build up and give you a big old saddle sore that makes it so your butt hurts at the end of the day. I can tell you, like, my butt doesn't hurt at all, even after like an 8-hour day. Like, it doesn't hurt one bit, and that's because I stand up and I stretch a lot, and I have my saddle in the correct position, and I have a good saddle. The final thing about saddles is you want a saddle that is firm, but that also has like a small amount of give to it. You don't want like one of these super gel type, super soft memory foam sort of saddles. That sounds nice, but actually that causes more chafing than having a firmer saddle. And it causes you to sweat, and the sweat causes you to chafe, and it's a horrible mixture. So you really do want a firm saddle that has a small amount of give to it. It's just like buying a mattress. Like, you don't want a super soft mattress, even though in your head that sounds really amazing. Because if you sleep on a super soft mattress, like your back folds into a taco, and when you wake up the following morning, you have incredible back pain. The same is true with a saddle. Like, you want something that is firm, that provides your spine with some support, but that also has a small amount of give to it, so that when you go over bumps, and you can absorb these small micro, hits from the road. So that's it. I just saw the comment here from Mark Cardella. Hey, Mark, good to see you. We got to talk sometime. Mark was my soccer coach growing up, and and played soccer with his son, Mark. And yeah, it's cool to see him here. Anyways. Hi, Darren. I'm from Poland. You are amazing. Please tell me something about traveling in the rain. Yeah, so that was another question that someone sent me in advance, and they wanted me to talk about biking in the rain. First of all, I can tell you, I hate biking in the rain. Oh gosh, I hate biking in the rain. So I'm not gonna pretend and tell you that like just get over it and ride. I'm not one of those people. I hate biking in the rain. And in fact, in recent years I've done a lot of winter bike tours where I've like 3 years ago I rode my bike across Ukraine, Poland, Slovakia, the Czech Republic in the wintertime when there was like snow on the ground. And I can tell you, riding in the snow is like 20 times better than riding in the rain. It's so much better, even though you would think it would be so much worse. Riding in the rain, I have two general techniques for riding in the rain. The first is, in a lot of parts of the world, it usually only rains for like a short amount of time. Like the clouds come over, it rains for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or even an hour maybe, and then the cloud passes and then the sun comes out. And in these parts of the world, in these sorts of conditions, my general strategy is not to try to continue through that rainstorm. My strategy is to simply find a place to take cover, like a bus stop, a restaurant, a cafe. Sometimes it's just under a tree or something, and I simply wait out the storm. That is my favorite technique to riding in the rain. It requires that you do not ride in the rain, and that's what I like so much about it. So yeah, that's my first technique. If you are in a place where you do have to ride in the rain, you're in a rush to get somewhere perhaps, or it's just simply riding all day long, raining all day long, excuse me, then you got to be prepared for that type of weather. And that means having a really good rain jacket, something that actually is waterproof. A lot of jackets nowadays say they're waterproof, but they really aren't. Having a pair of rain pants is actually not necessary 100%. A lot of cyclists, myself included, will ride long distances in the rain with no rain pants at all. You allow your bottom to get wet, that's okay. Because you're moving your legs so quickly, you generally stay warm if it's a pretty warm rain. And yeah, you get a little wet, like your feet get wet, your legs get wet, but your upper body, the part that houses your internal organs and stuff, stays warm and dry. And so that is probably the most important part. But I also carry rain pants, and like this trip that I'm on right now, 16 months, I've probably worn my rain pants once or twice. Once or twice. So like my pants are like super lightweight, they're very small, and they're packed way down at the bottom of my bags because I never use them. So having those is beneficial. Like if you do expect rain, like get a pair of rain pants, but I would say get the lightest possible pants that you can find. Another thing about rain pants, let me show you something really quick. Okay, sorry, I had to get a little prop here. But this is something that I carry when I am riding, and I use hardly ever, but this is a pant leg protector. It's basically just a Velcro strap. And what I do is I wrap it around my pant leg, like, you know, I can't even get it on the screen, but there it is. I wrap it around my pant leg right here. And basically what it does is it brings the rain pants, in this particular instance, in around my legs so that they aren't flapping around. Because what happens when you ride in pants a lot of times is that the bottom of that pant gets stuck in your chain, and then the pants tears and rips open or causes you to fall off your bike or something like that. And so this little strap that I just carry with me in the bottom of my bags is for whenever I ride my bike in pants. And it's one of these little things that I didn't carry on my early bike tours. I usually just like put a rubber band around my leg or something like that, but the rubber bands would break and they didn't work very well. So this is what I carry now. It's like super lightweight, weighs like nothing. You can get these on Amazon, I think for like $3 or something like that. This one had a big, heavy reflector on the outside of it right here, and I just ripped that off. So it's just, like when I put this on, you can't even see that it's on my leg. But it really does help a lot for riding in the rain and riding in pants in general. Like sometimes I'm just in the city and I will have my pants on and I'm running to a local restaurant or something like that on my bike, and I will just put this on. So this is a pant leg protector for those of you who don't know what that is. Yeah, what else? Sorry, I'm trying to get back to the screen here. There are sunglasses designed for riding in the rain that have like brighter lenses. I've experimented with these and found them to be, yeah, they certainly do help. They brighten up the road in rainy situations. They're usually like yellow lenses, but I've found it a little annoying to have to like switch out my lenses just because it's raining and then have to switch them back or whatever. So I don't carry special rain lenses anymore, but it's certainly something to experiment with, especially if you're going through a part of the world where it's going to be raining a lot. Like if you're going through Ireland or Scotland or something like that, maybe you want to be bringing some rain glasses. I don't know. If you have any other questions about cycling in the rain, ask me. We're coming up on an hour now. I will answer a few more questions if you guys have them, and I'll try to talk a little bit more quickly maybe. But I will go as long as you guys want me to. Oh man, lots of questions here. Okay, what type of foods do you carry with you while traveling in Western countries? Well, food is another thing that it just depends on where you are in the world. What I start the trip with is very different than what I finish the trip with, you know? usually when you're bike touring, you can really only carry a few days worth of food at a time. Like, I think the most food I've ever carried with me is about 6 days worth of food on my bike, and that's a lot of food. But on like a day-to-day basis, I would say that I'm really only carrying about like 1 to 1.5 days worth of food at any given instance, and sometimes even less than that. So it just depends on where I'm going, where the next town is, where I believe the next restaurant or supermarket, etc., to be. I think what you might be asking is like, what kind of staple foods are good to carry on your bike? And one of my favorites, especially if you have a stove, is oatmeal and pasta, both of which kind of high carb foods, which you need a lot of carbs when you're bike touring. So yeah, pasta is good because like the pasta itself is good, and then you can put other things with it, the sauces, the vegetables. If you eat, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat, but if you put meat on top on your pasta, you can add that, etc. So pasta is a good staple. I love oatmeal personally. I will eat that like 3 times a day if I if I have to. And again, that's the sort of thing like you can add a lot to it depending on where you are. You know, add fruit, add honey, etc. So those 2 things. What else? I tend to eat a lot of fruit on my bike tours because fruit is usually you can find it kind of anywhere in the world, not always, but it can be eaten raw, which for me, like right now I'm traveling with no camp stove, so I can't cook any meals unless I'm in an apartment like I am now. But when I'm out on the road, like I eat raw basically, or I get my food at a supermarket, restaurant or something, warm meals at a restaurant. So fruit is really good. Like I love bananas. Bananas, you could power yourself across. I think actually a lot of bike tourists power themselves entirely with bananas. Alistair Humphreys, who is an author and English adventurer, he spent 4 years bike touring around the world, and his big food I know that he ate was like peanut butter sandwiches, which I also love. So yeah, bananas are really good. Yeah, bananas and peanut butter. I love peanut butter. Peanuts, like lots of nuts too, cashews, almonds, those sorts of things. They're high in protein. Yeah, those are really good for you. So yeah, those are some of the things I'd recommend. How do you deal with loneliness? Hey, Jack, how are you? I recognize, I've worked with Jack before. Jack, how do you deal with the loneliness aspects of cycle touring? I'm planning to cycle across Canada, and that's one of the aspects I'm apprehensive about. Yeah, I think a lot of people avoid going on bike tours in general because they aren't sure if they can handle being on the road by themselves. Maybe they, like Jack, I think he knows that he can handle the bike touring aspect of it, the physical part of it, but he's wondering, you know, what's it going to be like to spend every day essentially by yourself for days or weeks on end. And this is an issue. When I did my first bike tour at 17 years old, I did that bike tour with 3 of my best friends. Each one of the friends kind of joined me for a different leg of the tour. So throughout that bike tour, I always had somebody with me. There wasn't a single day that I spent by myself. However, on my second bike tour, I wasn't able to find anyone to go with me. They were working or had other plans or whatever. And so I made the decision that I was going to do this by myself. And it was really at age 18, like the first time in my whole life that I'd ever done anything really by myself for like more than maybe a day or something. And it was really scary, and I think I had the same apprehensions that Jack is maybe having about his bike tour. I think in reality, bike touring is not as lonely as you might think, because when you're on your bike during the day, you're actually like running into a lot of people. Like I mean, it depends on where you are in the world too. Like certain parts of the world, there are people along the road that interact with you. Whereas maybe in Canada, where Jack is talking about riding, there's not going to be a lot of people on the road for him to interact with in some stretches. And so I guess my #1 tip is like, do some shorter trips by yourself close to home before you go on your tour. Like even if you do like a camping trip, a hiking trip or something like that, just for 2 days, like, or a week, a weekend, like go on Friday, come home on Sunday. Like those 2 days out in the wilderness or something will teach you a lot about yourself. And you'll kind of learn, what it's like to be on your own and make your own decisions and be alone in your tent at night with, just by yourself, which all those things can be scary for someone that's never done it before. I know that I was scared doing it at the beginning. And so, yeah, that would be my main tip. But in reality, like, I have found that my time on the bike during the day is the time when I'm interacting with people the most. And at night, I kind of appreciate like rolling into my tent and having some alone time, because that sounds really weird. You would think like, oh, I'm on my bike, I'm alone all day. But in reality, I feel like I'm surrounded by other people. So yeah, like it's really not as lonely as you might think. And there are other instances. I would encourage you actually, especially if you do have some apprehensions about traveling by yourself, I would encourage you to look for opportunities along your bike tour to interact with other people. Like you might even plan your bike tour in advance, knowing that there are certain cities up ahead on your route where you are going to interact 100% with other people. For example, you might go to the website meetup.com and find local meetup groups in the cities that you're going to be going to that you could possibly join while you're there. For example, I was recently in Southern California. I was looking for something to do basically while I was there. And I found on meetup.com a local group that plays trampoline dodgeball in this big giant arena where they have like 32 trampolines connected to each other. There was like this co-ed adult trampoline dodgeball team or league or something that met up every week, and it just, people my age and all ages really, 18 and over, would come and play trampoline dodgeball. And so I did that, and it was like a great way just to meet people. And I told them about my bike trip, and they thought that was amazing. And people there were actors in Hollywood and all kinds of like really interesting people. So there's things like that you can do that you really won't be that alone as long as you like make the time to not be alone. So that's the trick. Like, don't cycle 100% of the day, because you will be alone. But if you make the time to stop and meet people, and you're open to meeting people, you'll realize that a lot of your trip has been spent with other people. Keith says, how many foreign languages do you speak? I would say I speak near 0 foreign languages, although I can get by in German, Polish, Spanish, and then I know a few words in Turkish and Serbian and Chinese and Ukrainian and a few others as well. But anyways, I'm not fluent in any others than English. I know sign language too, actually. Hi, how are you? Darren, I still haven't picked a tent or sleeping bag for our bike tour to Canada to Argentina. Are there tents and bags in particular you could recommend? Tents, yes. Go to Bicycle Touring Pro and type in tents. I've reviewed quite a few tents there. I really like MSR tents, Mountain Safety Research, I think that stands for. And I was using their tent for the last 3 years. It's probably the best tent I've ever had. It's called the MSR Hubba. They have a 2-person version called the MSR Hubba Hubba. And that's a really good one. I'd recommend it. It's lightweight, it's durable, and it's good. As far as sleeping bags, No, I don't have a good recommendation. That's the short version. I've been looking for a good bag to recommend. I haven't found the best one yet. Sorry. Yeah. Hi, Darren. Back in South Africa after 2 weeks touring Eastern Germany. Extensively consulted your website and videos in preparation. Just wanted to say thanks, Arnie. Thank you, Arnie, for letting me know. Send me a picture from your trip. A lot of you guys, I hear you send me messages and say, oh, I got back from the trip and it was awesome or whatever. You got to send me a picture, man. I want to see the pictures. Like, send me one picture of you with your bike or something like that. Send it to me on Facebook, or you can email it to me at contact@bicycletouringpro.com. Elda says, what about laundry? 90% of the time, I'm washing my laundry in the sink at hotels, in restaurants. In restaurants? No, not restaurants. Restrooms, sorry. In restrooms at whatever, like gas stations, things like that. And yeah, 90% I would do in the sink. I haven't personally washed my clothes in a washing machine since October of 2014. Yeah, so it's like approaching a whole year practically since I washed my clothes in a washing machine. Anyways, yeah, but there are like laundromats all over the world. Like, you maybe don't see them because you aren't looking for them when you're at home, but like once you start to look for them, you will see them like everywhere. So if you insist on washing your clothes that way, you can do it. Also, like if you're at a hotel or something, usually the hotels have a washing machine that you can use, like even if it's not advertised. I was living in a hotel in Taiwan for 30 days at the end of last year, and they just said, hey, you want to wash your clothes? Like, they just let me go in the back room basically and wash my clothes, and they didn't have a dryer, but I could hang them up back there and stuff like that. So yeah. Every day must eat hot meal? No. Like I said, I am currently not traveling with a camp stove. This is something I've written about before on Bicycle Touring Pro. I even made a video about it recently, about why I'm not traveling with a camp stove. But when I'm on the road, I'm generally eating cold meals and like picnic style foods. Like, I eat a lot of veggie sandwiches, a lot of fruit, a lot of nuts, things like that. And if I do want to get a hot meal, I just go to a restaurant. But no, it's not necessary to have a hot meal. I think a lot of people think it is because that's what they're used to at home. But if you're willing to go outside of what you're used to a little bit, no, you don't need to do that. James asked a similar question. How do you cope with loneliness? Do you miss sharing moments with a cycling partner? To be honest, yeah, I do kind of get a little bummed sometimes when I think about the fact that, like, I'm having all these incredible experiences and I am really the only one to realize it, you know? It would be cool to have even one other person who you could share, like, oh, remember the time that monkey ate out of my panniers or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it does kind of suck to not have somebody with you all the time. There are benefits, though, to traveling on your own. Like, it's a lot easier to meet other people. A lot of other people are quicker to approach you because you are by yourself. They're quicker to invite you into their home, you know, largely because they feel safer and because it's easier to accommodate one person over two. But, you know, the internet and smartphones and stuff have really made it easier, I think, for me at least, and I think for others as well, to not feel so far from home when they're traveling by bike. You know, I can pick up my phone right now and call home and talk to my mom or my friends or whatever. And that's pretty amazing, you know, like you couldn't do that even just, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. So that really helps. Like, actually, this year is my first year traveling with a smartphone. It's completely changed my life. Like, it's made things so much easier, so much easier. And I feel more at home than I ever have before, because I can listen to music, I read books in my tent at night, I can watch movies on this. It's really awesome. And I navigate with this, all of that stuff. So like this one simple device is like the bike touring wonder thing. Anyways, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Dan says you mentioned locking your bike at grocery stores, but what about panniers and camping gear? 90% of the time, I am okay with simply leaving my panniers and camping gear on my bicycle outside of a supermarket and running inside quickly, grabbing the food I want, and then coming back outside. The bike is locked. I sometimes run the bike cable through the straps on the panniers as extra little support. Someone could still steal that stuff if they really wanted to. But again, this is one of these things that kind of depends on the situation, where you are in the world, etc. Like if you, like, it's something you learn over time, like street smarts, you know, like you learn like, okay, this place looks a little shady, or like, what are those three guys doing over there? Like, are they just waiting for me to go inside so they can take my stuff? And if so, maybe I should go to a different store, or maybe I should bring my bike inside. These are the sorts of things that you got to consider every single time you go inside, like even for an instant sometimes. Like, so yeah, I guess the short answer is you can leave the stuff on your bike a lot of the times. But if you feel like it's unsafe, don't be afraid to ask the supermarket or the grocery store or something if you can bring your bike inside, or if you can bring it around back, because most of the time they'll understand, especially when they see all the stuff on your bike. They'll say, okay, this guy's traveling, blah, 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 and they'll help you out. They want your business, so they want you to come inside. Yeah. Hey, Darren, just started touring after retiring 2 months ago. Is there anything an older tourist should be mindful of? Yeah, actually, obviously, like I started bike touring at a young age, and I'm still relatively young, but I have, over the years, joined up with a lot of older cyclists, and it's kind of one of the things that I think is so great about bike touring is the fact that like you can be 6 years old and you can be 86 years old and you can go on a bike tour. So there isn't a whole lot that changes, I think, as you age. I think the type of bicycle that you ride might change. A lot of older cyclists transition from more of a, you know, an over the handlebars sort of bike to a much more relaxed upright bicycle. And if your back is really hurting you, you might consider riding on a recumbent bicycle, which is really good for your back, especially over long periods of time. What else? I think you need to reduce the number of miles or kilometers that you ride in a single day as you age. You shouldn't try to push yourself too much. And probably you need to budget a little bit more money for hotels and things like that. Like a lot of young people, myself included, like I don't mind camping for 3 months straight, but in fact I kind of enjoy it. But a lot of, I think, older cyclists, you know, they want to sleep in a bed every night. They don't really want to sleep on the ground or have to deal with pitching a tent every night. And so yeah, like yeah, I guess you maybe just have to increase your budget a little bit in order to accommodate yourself in that way. I did an interview recently with Pat and Kat Patterson. They're a couple from Oxnard, California. They spent 4 years riding their bike around the world, and they're retirees. And I think they said that like during their 4 years around the world, they probably only camped like a handful of times, maybe, or maybe I think like less than 2 months total. And the rest of the time, they were able to find accommodations, like cheap accommodations. So it is possible to go around the world and like never have to camp. So yeah. I'm gonna go just for 10 more minutes, guys, and then I gotta go. Can you talk about folding bikes? I have a Dayhun. Yes, folding bikes can be used for touring. There are certain folding bikes made to mount racks to the back and front of the bicycle. I had a Bike Friday New World Tourist. That was the name of the bicycle. If you go to bicycletouringpro.com, type in Bike Friday, and you'll see my review of the bicycle that I rode across Europe in 2009. I've also taken that bike on several shorter trips. I went to Aruba with a folding bicycle. I did the Katy Trail in Missouri on a folding bicycle. And folding bikes are great because they fold down and you can fly with them, travel with them, and it makes traveling with your bike like super easy and cheap as well in some instances where you might otherwise have to pay to travel with your bike. But yeah, I probably wouldn't use a folding bicycle as like my prime bike. They are good in certain instances. I think for shorter bike trips, they're cool. I wouldn't want to ride one around the world, to be honest. And I'm telling you that after having completed a 9-month-long bike tour on a folding bicycle. It works. It got me there. It just wasn't the best bike for what I was doing. What else? Another question, thanks. Have you tried traveling with a recumbent bike? No, I have never done a tour on a recumbent. I would like to experiment with that in the future. I try to experiment, like on every bike tour, I try to do something a little bit differently. That's one of the things that I really want to do in the future, hopefully sometime soon. So, okay, I lost track of the questions now. Keith says, do you ever use toe clips? Yeah, on all of my early bike trips, I would ride with a pair of toe clips. Toe clips are basically like a fabric strap that goes up over the top of your pedal, kind of like this, like if my hand is the pedal, and then there's this strap that goes over the top, and what it allows you to do is tuck your foot inside this clip, and then normally when you ride a bicycle just in regular pedals, you can only power the bike by pressing down on the pedals, down, 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 down. But when you have toe clips or clips in general on your bike, you can power your bike by pressing down and by pressing up. So having this strap here allows me to push my foot up against the strap, which allows me to power the bike when I press down, going forward, and then power it again when I'm going back. So down, up, down, up. And yeah, toe clips are great if you're using like a regular pair of shoes, like running shoes, walking shoes, etc., on your bike tour. All right, bye, Mark. Thanks for watching. Peter says, I got a rain cape. Is it inadvisable to use this on a bike? No, you get a lot of cyclists ride in rain capes. You just want to make sure it doesn't flap too much. That's usually the main problem, is it creates this big torrent of wind behind you, and you want to make sure that the flapping doesn't get in, doesn't hit any part of your bike so that it's interfering with your bicycle or is interfering in any way with the traffic. Like I've seen some of these capes that blow so much off the cyclist's back that like I'm afraid that they're gonna get traffic, swerving off the road or something like that. So just make sure that the cape fits you well. And no, I'd say a rain cape's a good idea. Yeah, another question about shoes there. Yes, I carry 2 pairs of shoes on my bike tours, but that's because I'm traveling for so long. On my early bike tours, I used to carry just 1 pair of shoes. Like I said, I would have just a regular pair of walking shoes, basically, and a set of toe clips, which allowed me to power the bike down and up. After about 4 years, then I got SPD, that's SPD, pedals and shoes. And there's a small clip on the bottom of the shoe that allows you to clip into the pedal and power the bike when you're pressing down and when you're pressing up. That's what I wear now and when I'm riding my bike, but I also carry an additional pair of shoes for off the bike. So those are generally like the 3 ways that you'll see bicycle tourists travel with their shoes. They either have regular walking shoes with toe clips, they either have a set of SPD bicycle pedals and shoes, or they have both, basically. So they have shoes that they ride in, bike shoes, and shoes that they walk in. And if your main goal on your bike trip is to ride your bike, I would definitely recommend getting a pair of SPD shoes. Go to bicycletouringpro.com, type in shoes. I've written an article, it's like one of the most popular articles on Bicycle Touring Pro about stylish bike shoes. These are bike shoes that, like, if you step off the bike, you might not even know that they are bike shoes. And that's what is so cool about them. So check those out. All of those shoes on that page are really good, and I'd recommend them for any type of bike tour. Okay, last few questions, guys. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Do you have any tips for cycling through 100-degree weather? I've been on the road for 2 months now, and recently the temperature has been reaching the high 90s. Albert. Yeah, Albert, I do have, well, first of all, congratulations. That's freaking awesome that you've been on the road for so long. As far as riding in the heat, I have 2 things. Like, one, obviously, like, you need to carry lots of water. Like, water is so important. It's so heavy, and I hate carrying it on my bike. But like, when you're riding in those conditions, you want to make sure you have enough water. Sunscreen is obviously important as well. Covering up your body as much as you can. Like, a lot of cyclists I've seen recently riding in hot weather are tucking a bandana inside the back of their helmet, and so allowing the bandana just to cover that part of their neck. It makes it so you don't get too hot, because normally the bandana kind of flies up a little bit, but it covers your neck so you aren't getting burned, which is probably usually like the worst part of a lot of people, is like getting burned on their neck. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is, like, a lot of, like, a traditional bike tour, you ride during the day. You wake up in the morning, say at 9 o'clock or something, and then you ride until 3 p.m. and then you pitch your tent and you are done. But if it's really, really hot out there, like 90 degrees, that's not too bad. But I've ridden in like 110-degree weather, and that's hot. And sometimes the best technique is to get up super early in the morning, like as soon as it's light at all, and you ride until like 10 a.m. maybe, when it's starting to get really hot. Then you like find a restaurant or a park or somewhere to hang out in the shade, and you just hang there for like 4 hours or something, like through the hottest part of the day. And then as soon as the sun starts to go down a little bit more, then you continue to ride from, like, let's say, I don't know, you could say 3 until 6, or even later than that sometimes. Like, it depends on when the sun sets. Like, I was riding in Finland this last summer, and the sun wasn't setting until 11:30 at night. So I would ride sometimes until 11 p.m. So, you know, and yeah, that's like, if the sun doesn't set, take advantage of that. So that's, I guess, my biggest tip is, like, don't think that you have to ride during the hottest part of the day, because you don't. You could even ride at night, and that is one of the strategies a lot of people I've written about on Bicycle Touring Pro before, and inside my book, The Bicycle Touring Blueprint. That's a strategy for beating the heat, is like riding at night when it's much cooler and there's fewer cars on the road, etc. So that's it, I would guess. Okay, last question, guys. Oh, there was a good one there I saw. What is your philosophical intent? Okay, this is a good one to end the whole thing on. What is your philosophical intent on bike touring? What makes you keep going philosophically? Well, that's a huge question, and probably something that I've been asking myself since the very beginning, is like, why am I doing this? There are 2 major answers that I have about why I like to bike tour and why I think you should bike tour too. One, when I look back on the last 15 years, and about everything I've done. Like I've done other things outside of bike touring. Like for example, in 2006, if you said, what did you do in 2006? I could tell you exactly where I was on my bike tour, where I went, some of the experiences I had. But it's only after I think about that that I remember that I graduated from university in 2006 and that I bought a house in 2006. I got my first job in 2006. So for me, like the experiences I've had traveling by bike are more memorable than many of the major accomplishments that a lot of people have in their lives. And so I think that is probably the #1 thing that brings me back to bike touring is when it's all over, I look back at what I've done over the last year or the last couple months even, or years ago, and I can say like, wow, that was an incredible experience, and I would potentially want to do more of that, and that's what's happened. Kind of, there have been instances in the past where I thought, this is going to be my last bike tour. And then when it's over, I think, no, like, that was amazing. I got to do more of that. And so I think that's what's brought me back. The other thing is, like, a lot of people, like somebody asked me like 2 years ago, like they were saying, like, what have you learned from your travels? And there's so many things that I've learned. Like I've learned a lot about the world, learned a lot about myself. I've learned a few, some language stuff. I've learned about history and geography, and I've learned to interact with other people. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't know if I've learned anything momentous. Like I think a lot of people think that you're going to go around the world and you're going to come back with like the answer to the meaning of life or something like that. And that hasn't happened. Maybe that's part of what keeps me going, I guess, is like the unknown. That's kind of why I'm going to the countries that I'm going to this year. Is like I've never been to Serbia, Bosnia, Denmark, Norway, or Sweden. Why am I going there? Because I've never been there before. And there's something new to learn in those places, I have a feeling. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But I guess that's what keeps me going, is the unknown, trying to learn new things. For me, it's not just about riding my bike. Like, I don't even consider myself a cyclist, really. I'm just a guy that likes to get around on my bike, I guess. The bike is just the vehicle that takes me from these incredible experiences, from one experience to the next. And so, yeah, I think if you try bike touring, you'll realize that, like I have, that it's an incredible experience, and you can do it in any way you want. You can go wherever you like, and hopefully you'll learn a few things about the world and yourself along the way. You might not discover the meaning of life, but you will learn something, I promise you. So I think that's a good way to end. Thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry, I know there's a few more questions on here. Maybe I'll try to answer those questions in a future article or video at bicycletouringpro.com. There's a bunch of links below this video, guys. If you have additional questions, those links will point you in the right direction. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. And like I said before, if you go on a bike trip, send me an email or send me a postcard even. I have my address on the website. Send me a postcard from your travels. Let me know how it went. And be safe and have fun. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.